All right, guys, welcome back. It's Tuesday. I'm going to go over what you guys are working on today. All right, so yesterday you guys finished up on doing vocabulary flashcards. Today you guys are going to have two assignments to work on. So the first thing that you guys are going to work on is a journal. So this journal is going to be kind of related to the book and also related to the your own lives. All right, so a routine, okay, is a sequence of actions regularly followed. It's performed as part of a regular procedure rather than a special reason, right? So routines are basically things that you're just kind of used to and that you just do on a daily basis. If you think about Luke, his life comes crashing down on him because his routines that he's used to start to change drastically now. If you think about the story, right? Luke used to be able to go outside, he used to be able to do things to help his family, and as the story's progressing more and more and more, all of these things are taken away. Okay, so now if you think about it, you guys are experiencing very similar changes in your own lives. Okay, right now, what I want you to do is to think about your own life and think about what are some of these routines that you're used to and that you're missing out on right now, and then how it has changed your life. Okay, so there's three steps to this assignment. The first is to identify, okay, the one routine that you feel you kind of miss the most. Okay, and then I want you to think about why you can't perform it any longer. The second is you need to explain what is it that actually has replaced that routine. So instead of doing the thing that you used to do, what is it that you do? And then the last thing is you have to explain how this loss of routine has changed how you behave and then how that made you feel. Okay. On the bottom here, I gave you guys an example. So this is an example of what it should look like. Excuse me. I used to be able to go jogging through my neighborhood with my friends at 9 o'clock at night. Okay, I'm no longer able to jog outside for two reasons. One is that people have to socially distance. I'm no longer allowed to be near other people. Secondly, there's a curfew and it's illegal to be outside after 8 p.m. Okay, now, instead of jogging at 9 p.m., I have to use the treadmill in my house. Okay, and it's not as much of a social event. Though also jogging outside has had some positive and some negative effects on me. I can no longer discuss the events of my day with my friends, which is obviously something I miss. There's not as much competitiveness in running because there's nobody there to force me to push myself. But on the other hand, I'm able to do a lot more introspective thinking while running. So, right when I'm running by myself, I can kind of think about it. And I'm no longer having a conversation. I can also listen to podcasts, okay, which are informative and funny. So that's something that's somewhat positive, right? So there's some positive things and there are some negative things. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is you're going to pause this video now. And what I want you to do is just open this up and you're going to do your journal. When you're done with your journal, you're going to continue the video. All right, so you should be done with your journal now. All right, so now we're going to continue reading the story. We're going to read chapters 10 and 11, and then you guys will just have one question to do on Socrative. All right, so chapter 10. So remember where we left off, we basically see that Luke has recognized that there's someone inside of this house across the street in the sports family, and he's trying to figure out if he's going crazy, is he not going crazy, what's going on there. When Luke went down to supper, he saw the mother had set 2 loaves of bread out on the china plate she used for holidays and special occasions. She was showing off the bread the way she used to tape up the cricket drawings Matthew and Mark brought home from school when they were little. But something had gone wrong. Maybe Luke hadn't used enough yeast, or he kneaded the dough too much or too little, and the loaves had turned out flat. They looked lopsided and pathetic in the center of the table. Luke wished Mother had just thrown them away. It's cold out now. Nobody would notice if you pulled the shades. Why can't I sit at the table with all of you? He asked when he reached the bottom of the stairs. Oh, Luke, Mother started. Someone might see your shadow through the shade, Dad said. They wouldn't know it was mine, Luke said. But there'd be 5. Somebody might get suspicious, Mother said patiently. Luke, we're just trying to protect you. How about a big slice of your bread? There's cold beef and canned beans, too. Resignedly, Luke sat down on the stairs. Matthew asked about the auction Dad had gone to. So an auction is a place where people bid on products, and whoever gets the highest bid wins. It's kind of like eBay. I drove all that way for nothing, Dad said disgustedly. I waited 4 hours for the tractors to come up, and then I couldn't even afford the first bid. At least you got home in time to fix the back fence before dark, Mother said, cutting the bread. And yell at me, Luke thought bitterly. What's wrong with him? Nothing has changed. Except maybe he'd seen a face that maybe belonged to someone like him. Matthew and Mark suddenly noticed the bread that Mother was doling out. What's wrong with that? Mark asked. I'm sure it'll taste fine, Mother said. It's Luke's first try, Luke muttered. And my last, too, softly for anybody to hear. There were advantages to sitting on the other side of the room from anyone else. So obviously the advantage is that nobody can hear him talking under his breath. Luke made bread? Mark said incredulously. Yuck. Yeah, and I put some special poison in one of those loaves that only affects 14-year-olds, Luke said. He pantomimed death, clutching his hands around his neck, letting his tongue hang out of his mouth and lolling his side from the side. If you're nice to me, I'll tell you which loaf is safe. That shut up Mark, but earned Luke a frown from Mother. Luke felt strange about the joke anyway. Of course, he'd never poisoned anyone, but if something happened to Matthew or Mark, would Luke have to hide anymore? Would he become the public's second son, free to go to town and to school and wherever else that Matthew and Mark went? Could his parents find some way to explain a new child already 12 years old? It wasn't something Luke could ask. He felt guilty just thinking about it. Mark was making a big ceremony out of bringing the bread to his mouth. I'm not scared of you, he taunted, and he took a big bite. He swallowed with great difficulty and pretended to gag. Water! Water! Quick! He gulped down half of his glass and glared at Luke. It tastes like poison, all right. Luke bit into the bread. It was dry and crumbly and tasteless, not like Mom's at all, and everybody knew it. Even Dad and Mother had pained expressions on their faces as they chewed. Dad finally pushed his slice away. It's okay, Luke. I'm not sure I'd want my son of mine getting too good at baking anyhow. That's what a man gets married for. Matthew and Mark guffawed. Getting married soon, Luke? Mark teased. Sure, Luke said, struggling to sound as devil-may-care as Mark, but don't think I'd invite you to the wedding. He felt a cold, hard lump in his stomach that wasn't the bread. Of course, he'd never get married or do anything. He'd never leave the house. Mark switched to teasing Matthew, who evidently did have a girlfriend. Luke watched the rest of his family laughing. May I be excused? Luke asked. Everyone turned to him in surprise. Usually he was the last one to make the request. Mother often begged Matthew and Mark, Can't you wait and talk to Luke a little bit longer? Done already? Mother asked. I'm not very hungry, Luke said. Mother gave him a worried look but nodded anyway. Luke went to his room, climbed onto the stool by the back fence. In the dark, it was easier than ever to see into the houses of the new neighborhood. Their windows were lit up against the night. Some families were eating like his. He could see one set of 4 people around a dining room table, and one set of 3. Some families had their curtains or shades drawn, but sometimes the material was thin and you could see still shadows of the people inside. Only the sports family had all their windows totally blocked, covered by heavy blinds. So this is obviously a clue of something. Chapter 11. Luke watched the sports family's house constantly after that. Before he had just looked out the back fence into the early morning and the late afternoon when he knew people were about, but he'd seen the face at 2 o'clock. Maybe the other kid knew the rhythms of the neighborhood too and let his guard down only during his times he considered safe. For 3 long days Luke saw nothing. Then, on the 4th day, he was rewarded. One panel of one of the blinds and an upstairs window flipped quickly up and down at 11 o'clock. The 7th day, the blinds in the downstairs window were left up in the morning. Luke saw a light go on and off at 9:07, 2 full hours after the last of the sports family had left. Half an hour later, the sports family mother drove in her red car and stomped into the house. 2 minutes later, the blind in the downstairs window went down. The mother left immediately. The 13th day was unseasonably warm, and Luke sweated in his attic. Some of the sports family's windows were left open, though still covered by the blinds. The wind blew the blinds back a couple of times. Luke saw lights on in some of the rooms some of the time, in other rooms as the day wore on. Once he even thought he saw a glow of a TV screen. He had no doubts anymore. Someone was hiding in the sports family's house. The question was, what could he do about it? Okay, so what you're going to do now is just answer a question on Socrative, and then you are finito.